Thanks for joining us. This is the World News at 12 from Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon of First our top stories. Many feared killed, abducted in attack in Ebonyi community. NARD gives federal government 4-week ultimatum, extends strike suspension. Lagos court grants activists Soweto de Lefranc 200,000 naira bail each over anti-demolition protest. Meter cost spark disco and federal government showdown on tariff. Alcaraz in sport, Alcaraz outlast Zverev in epic to reach maiden Australian Open final. And outside Nigeria, Burkina Faso jumped out to dissolve all political parties. Those are our top stories. The details coming up in just a moment. First on the news, many persons have been allegedly killed and abducted in Okorojo community, Osweda in Eda local government area of Ebonyi State, following an attack by yet to be identified persons. The incident was said to have happened on Thursday afternoon, January 29, 2026, around 4 p.m. Report indicated that unidentified armed men ambushed the community late afternoon, setting houses on fire, and many were killed and abducted during the attack. Also, over 5 persons were said to have been allegedly beheaded and their heads taken away by the assailant. In a viral video circulating online, houses were seen set on fire as the community called on the state government and security agencies for help. According to sources, the violence stemmed from a decade-old dispute over a specified tract of land at the boundary of Osoede in Eda local government area and Amasiri in Afikpo local government area. Both communities claim ancestral ownership. Meanwhile, the Ebonyi State Police Command and the Ebonyi State Government are yet to issue a statement regarding the incident as at the time of filing this report. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, has issued a 4-week ultimatum to the federal government to fully implement outstanding agreements on salaries, allowances and welfare, even as it extended the suspension of its total indefinite comprehensive strike, TICS. The decision was taken at the end of the association's January National Executive Council NEC meeting and scientific conference held between January 25 and 29, 2026 in Jos, Plateau State. In a communique jointly signed by NARD President Muhammad Suleiman, Secretary General Shuaib Ibrahim, and Publicity and Social Secretary Abdul Majid Ibrahim, the association expressed appreciation to President Bola Tinubu, the Vice President Kashim Shettima, Plateau State Governor Caleb Mutfwang, and other key stakeholders for their roles in ongoing engagement. NARD said the extension of the strike suspension for another 4 weeks was a goodwill gesture in recognition of what it described as progress made by the federal government. NARD held its January National NEC meeting, its first statutory gesture for the year, alongside a specific scientific conference on January 27 at the Eliel Center, Gold and Base, Jos, Plateau State. The conference, themed Innovative for Equity Technology as a Bridge Between Poverty and Health, was delivered by Professor National Chairman, who was by Dr. Peace Longdet. The event was chaired by the President of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Asu Piwuna Christopher, and attracted several dignitaries, including the Gwang Jos and the chairman of the Plateau State Council of Chiefs and Emir, His Royal Majesty Jacob Gyang, who was represented. Leaders of the National Medical Association (NMA) and chief medical directors of major health institutions were also present. The Yaba Magistrate Court in Lagos on Thursday granted activist Hassan Taiwo, popularly known as Soweto, and protest leader Dele Frank bail in the sum of 200,000 naira each. The Lagos State Police Command arraigned Soweto, Frank, and other anti-demolition and forced eviction protesters before the court over alleged felony offences arising from a protest in Ikeja on Wednesday. The police filed 5 counts against the protesters, including allegations of conduct likely to cause a breach of the peace, threats of violence, unlawful assembly, and obstruction of the free flow of traffic. Human rights lawyer Femi Falana appeared in court to represent the protesters. Soweto, a leading member of the Democratic Socialist Movement (DSM) and spokesperson of the #End Bad Governance movement in Lagos, was arrested by operatives of the Lagos State Police Command while participating in a protest against the demolition and forced eviction of residents from Makoko, Oworonshoki, Owode-Oniri, and other low-income communities across the state. In a statement issued on Wednesday, the police said Soweto and Frank were being investigated at the State Criminal Investigation Department, PANTI, over their alleged roles in what the command described as violence and unlawful demonstration. According to the police, the protest began at the Ikeja underbridge while demonstrators allegedly blocked Awolowo Road for several hours, extending towards Alausa. The protesters were also accused of carrying a coffin, mounting loudspeakers on a vehicle, and barricading major roads, actions the police said brought traffic to a standstill. The command further claimed that the blockade hindered residents with medical emergencies from accessing hospitals and disrupted travelers heading to the airport, creating panic and chaos in parts of Ikeja and Alausa. The Bureau of Public Enterprises, an agency of the federal government, has said that electricity consumers will pay for the ongoing free meter installation through their tariffs. The disclosure comes amid a row with electricity distribution companies over who is responsible for covering the cost of the prepaid meters being rolled out under World Bank funded programs. The federal government and electricity distribution companies have been at loggerheads over who bears the cost of prepaid meters being rolled out by the federal government. The disagreement erupted after the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, directed that prepaid meters procured under the World Bank funded Distribution Sector Recovery Program must be installed for electricity consumers free of charge, warning that any official or installer found collecting money will be prosecuted. However, electricity distribution companies expressed doubt over the directive, insisting that although customers may not pay cash upfront, the meters will still be paid for by the discos over a period of 10 years, raising concerns about cost recovery, installation expenses, and the financial implications for operators. Reacting to the controversy, the Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprises, Ayo Agbeleyi, dismissed claims that the discos were being asked to pay for the meters over a 10-year period, regretting that the federal government's free metering program was receiving pushback from the disco. Speaking in Lagos at the 501 billion naira bond issuance signing ceremony to settle power sector debt, Gbeleyi expressed concern that the discos were given a wrong narrative as far as the free metering initiative was concerned. Addressing claims by discos that they were expected to repay the cost of the meters over a decade, the PBE boss said such assertions were inaccurate and misleading. He noted that the meter costs are embedded in tariffs over time, just like transformers, feeders, and other investment of the discos. Bele's clarification shows that meters are not given to customers and would pay for them through their tariffs. He added that the discos often fail to mention the concessional nature of the federal government intervention, which he said was to be repaid over 20 years. Meanwhile, the governor of Abia State has said that the state is no longer experiencing power failure caused by frequent collapse of the national grid system, as his administration is now investing in converting organic waste product into electricity. He disclosed this while addressing the media at the state government house on Thursday. According to him, waste products are now being converted from biogas into renewable energy for Abians, adding that the state is no longer under the control of the National Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC). He also disclosed that the new arrangement had been negotiated and accepted by the utility firm Enugu Electricity Distribution Company (EEDC) in charge of power in the state. He said it is a pilot program, so instead of throwing away waste, return it into clean energy and will be able to power a lot of places, particularly the Umahia in farms. The national grid system on Tuesday recorded its second collapse in 2026, causing widespread power outages across the country. Grid collapses have been attributed to a combination of technical faults, inadequate maintenance of transmission lines, and fluctuations in generation capacity. Electricity generation dropped sharply from over 4,500 megawatts to as low as 0 megawatts at 11 a.m. Checks showed that all 23 power generation plants connected to the grid reportedly lost output during the incident, resulting in zero power allocation to each of the 11 electricity distribution companies. Former Labour Party LP presidential candidate Peter Obi last week criticized the collapse, describing it as a continuation of a deepening national grid. Abdullahi Sule, governor of Nasarawa State, says governors elected on the platform of the All Progressive Congress APC are not losing sleep over the impeachment process initiated against Similolai Fubara, Rivers State governor. Sule, while speaking during an interview on television, was asked if the governors were anxious about the plots to remove Fubara. Instead, Sule insisted the process was strictly guided by the law. The Nasarawa governor added that impeachment cannot occur without due process. Sule noted that court rulings and actions by the chief judge were already addressing the matter. On internal party matters in Rivers, Sule said the issues were for the APC to resolve, not the Progressive Governors Forum. His remarks come as the latest impeachment attempt against Fubara claims stalled by legal and procedural obstacles. On January 23, a Rivers High Court adjourned the case indefinitely, ruling that the Court of Appeal must first address pending appeals filed by Speaker and other lawmakers. The ruling effectively halted the impeachment proceedings. If you're just tuning in, this is the World News at 12 from Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Joining me to help analyze our news item is Yemi Daniels. He's a current affairs analyst. Mr. Daniels, thank you for joining us on the World News at 12.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's go to our first topic for today, which is the strike by the National Association of Resident Doctors. They've extended their strike, giving the federal government a 4-week ultimatum. One would have expected that by now the federal government would have found a way to resolve this issue, if not for anything because of the brain drain, the Japa syndrome, especially among medical practitioners in Nigeria, just like as they've resolved the ASU federal government issue. At least for now, it looks resolved. But one would have expected that this incessant strike by health practitioners in Nigeria would have stopped by now. What's your take on that?
Thank you once again. I think to the extent that, in my opinion, health sector is not a major priority to the federal government,
which is quite sad indeed.
Which is unfortunate. And I say this because if you look at the budget provision over the years, Nigeria has never met the stipulated about that is should have health and education. And those two major social services continue to suffer because they are not priority areas of the federal government and indeed all the different tiers of government in Nigeria. So when you have that situation, definitely the areas those monies should go will there will be gaps in there, and the gaps will actually trigger reactions of these sorts. You recall that during the month of there was a similar strike, and it lasted for months. And these people have been on this, they've been on this since last year. Recall that for a while, government did not even respond to them, despite letters to the government that agreements have been breached. Government did not so much as respond. Now they started a strike and they are extending it. And there doesn't seem to be any concerted efforts on the part of. Do agree that some situations cannot be addressed at once, but there should be political will. So people should see government to be interested in solving.
Hello, Mr. Daniels. Hello. Let's try to see if we can call you back. Network is quite bad. We can hardly hear you here. Let's call the call and try and reconnect with you. See if the network will be better this time around.
It's okay then. Sorry about that.
Hello, Mr. Daniels.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, I think it's better now. It's better now. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So as I was saying, basically because government has not demonstrated sufficient political will in this area. And that's why we are having these incessant strike actions in a critical area like the health sector. Imagine a threat to extend it by another 4 weeks. They've been on strike for well over a month now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And now they're extending it. That tells us that nothing significant is being done by the government. And you know what that means? A lot of people are just hanging around in hospitals, skeletal services here and there. You don't know how many people may have died as a result of this. Yeah. But because the Nigerian life is not valuable to government and to Nigerian government, it really, as far as the government is concerned, it's statistics. You understand? You know, when you hear people say only 12 people died, you just imagine such things. So that tells us that as far as Nigeria is concerned, human life is statistic. And so that is what we are dealing with. And I hope that Nigerians will take note of these things. I say something. The extent to which government will deliver is a function of the value government attaches to the ordinary Nigerian. If government does not attach significant value to the ordinary Nigerian, the ordinary Nigerian does not expect government to invest in that value. You will agree with me that investment in something is a function of the value you place on that thing. If Nigerian life is so valuable to government, Nigerian government will not allocate significant budget to that priority area because for them, it is not a priority. Now think about it. Then look at the primary health center. I think we have about 8,900 primary health centers in Nigeria. You ask yourself, how many of these primary health care centers are being properly furnished? I say this to you, MRI scan machine, it costs about 275 million naira. I said 275. Each governor, each of Nigeria, most of Nigerian governors are driving a particular brand of car now. That car is about 375 million naira.
More expensive than an MRI machine.
More expensive than, you understand. Now that tells us where the priority really lies. So you really cannot blame resident doctors for extending the strike action, because there is no significant effort from the part of government to do something that is sustainable. That's what the problem is. We can't continue with tokenism. We're talking about 230 million lives here. So tokenism will not deliver. And like you rightly mentioned earlier, that Jackpot syndrome has affected the health sector so badly. And even that has not, it hasn't jolted government. And you wonder, some people have said that the reason we're having this is that public officers are allowed to go abroad for medical treatment.
True.
That if we had a provision in the law that insists that if you're gonna serve in public offices in Nigeria, what it means that your health care must be domiciled here within the number of years you will be serving. Do you understand? So there is no motivation.
They will take hospitals seriously.
They will take it seriously.
A typical example is what happened during the COVID, where it started with the rich and powerful getting COVID, and they were forced to utilize some of our hospitals because, most of them couldn't travel out of the country.
They couldn't go abroad, yes,
because of the close-up.
Yes. So for people who are advocating that, you can't blame them. That okay, if every Nigerian public officer has to go to Nigerian hospitals only you know that your life is at risk, then you will commit to what is necessary, what is important. And I think that's what the problem is. And I think that's the way to go. I always write the reservation that people have the right to be wherever they want to go for their treatment. But the demonically inspired political class does not seem to be repentant at all. People are dying in hospitals because of this strike action, and not much is being done to alleviate the situation. I am tempted to believe that the people that are governing Nigeria are demonic people. They are demon-possessed people. Because if you look at the number of people that die in hospitals on a daily basis, there is no sane government that will allow the strike to have gone beyond 1 week, if not a day. That tells us the kind of people that are governing, that are ruling Nigeria. I dare say these guys are demon possessed, because they just don't care. They don't care. There is no evidence of care, to say the least. There is no evidence. Now, so that's my take.
Now, one thing is for sure. Government over the years not even since we got into the civilian government, which is why people wonder what's the difference between the military leadership and civilian leadership. Since we transitioned into civil, things seem to have gotten from bad to worse. But one thing is for sure, governments long before even the APC government even came into power, they've not responded well to strike and strike threats, which means strike have not exactly yielded any positive result so far. Is there no way for associations, NARD now as point of reference, to look for another way to pressure the government into meeting their demands instead of strike, because strike has not worked so far?
Yes, I totally agree with you that I agree with you that strike has not delivered as much value as it could have delivered, or as it does deliver in other crimes. The reason is this: that we have a set of human beings, or a set of demon-possessed people ruling Nigeria, who really do not care as long as their pockets are being lined. No other thing matters to them. And that is the reason strike hasn't produced as much as it should have produced. In other societies where people listen, where government is responsive, the moment an association as critical as resident doctors announced that they were going on strike, engagement would begin immediately. I mean, there are established structures within these organizations. There are established that government should reach out to. There are liaison offices between government and these organizations. There are extra professional fora that government can take advantage of. There are people who are not within that profession, but who have influence on that profession, that government could take advantage and say, let's talk about this. But trust me, all those avenues have been exhausted because government has not shown seriousness to deal with the situation. Like I did say to you, just think of MRI machine. Just think about it. In some hospitals, in some other places in the world, and a hospital can have as much as 10 of it. In Nigeria, big hospitals don't even have one. I mean, public hospitals don't even have one. I was sharing with a friend of mine the other day. I said, the Lagos Island Hospital that the elevator trapped some people the other time. Do you know that elevator was not fixed up until last year? I'm not sure if it's been fixed now, but it wasn't fixed even last year. That incident took place 2 years ago. And people died from that incident. So you tell us where our priority lies. Our priority does not lie in the improvement of the lives of Nigerians. And I think that this is the reason Nigerians should be asking these critical questions. Who among the candidates for 2027 is demonstrating significant care for human life? You can be throwing money around, be generating revenues, but if the Nigerian life is not in any way improved, what is the use of the revenue? I mean, I did look at Twitter this morning and I saw someone identify 1,001 things that the incumbent has done in the last 2 years, in the last 2.5 years. And I asked him, and I did reply that post that it's okay to have a whole lot of initiatives. But the question will be, what has been the impact of those initiatives?
To the
how many people have benefited? If you're look at healthcare, for instance, in the real sense, how many Nigerians of the 230 million of us have access to healthcare? How many? And how do we measure? You have to measure on the basis of how many bed spaces in each hospital. The United Nations recognizes that there should be one bed space for 1,000 people, for instance. You understand? So how many bed spaces do we have in the hospitals? That's the beginning of access.
Okay.
How long will it take me to access primary health care from where I live?
Now, because of time, let's go to the other topic for discussion, where the Yabas Magistrate Court in Lagos yesterday granted activist Hassan Taiwo, popularly known as Soweto, and protest leader Dele Frank bail in the sum of 200,000 naira each. The Lagos State Police Commander arraigned both of them over and other anti-demolition and forced eviction protesters before the court. They alleged felony offenses arising from the protest that happened on Wednesday in Ikeja. What's your take on that?
Nigerian government has been notorious for infringement of fundamental human rights.
Including protest.
In protest. If you read Soweto's and Soweto's account of that incident, he was assaulted at the national at Alausa. Now, the police did as much as they could to stop that protest, but unfortunately, they went all the way to do the protest anyway. But thankfully, that they've now been granted bail. Thankfully, they've been granted bail despite despite the assault and what have you. I will go back to the same thing. The question is, how much value does the Nigerian government place on the ordinary Nigerian life? And why are these guys protesting? Why are they protesting? It was basically, you're making life more difficult for people. People's houses were demolished. Now, in a decent society where you are talking about urban renewal, you do not want them in a particular place. They are such an eyesore to the state. Now, what provision has government made?
Usually you compensate them heavily for
You
those. Yeah.
understand? These are basic human, this is basic common sense. But because, like I will say again and I will say it again, we have demon possessed people in government in Nigeria. Because it's just commonsensical that people have lived in a particular place. Some of them, they've lived there for generations, for crying out loud. Some people were born in those environments. And there is no single provision, no compensation whatsoever. Some of them have titles. Now, you will say that they will be compensated, or they have been compensated. You understand? You can't talk about they will when you have demolished their houses. You compensate them and you ensure that they have been compensated, because you can compensate them in paper. The memo could have moved from one office to the other, but the cash didn't get to those people. You ensure that they have been compensated. The money have gotten to them before you go on a demolition spree.
And
Because at that
you also
time,
give them a proper time to relocate to another
oh
place.
yes, compensation gets to them. They are given time to relocate. We got about 6 months of relocation, for crying out loud. If you knew that you do not want them in a particular place in December 2026, for instance, you would have compensated them by June 2026. So they have 6 months to undertake that relocation. And you make it as, I don't know.
These are some of the huge difference between a democratic government and a military leadership. And while we definitely don't advocate for military coup, it's situations like these that people begin to say, since we got into democracy, we've not seen the benefit of it. And these a bad name for democracy that's supposed to be government for the people, by the people.
Honestly, I've said it and I will say it again. We are not in a democracy. We are in a civilian regime, not a democracy. In a democracy, there are basic tenets. Rule of law is fundamental in a democracy. In a democracy, there is freedom of speech and there is freedom after speech. In a democracy, the will of the people is supreme. Now we are in a government where the will of the people is being submerged. What then is a democracy? The will of the people is being submerged. Now, it's possible for people to be wrong, for the majority to be wrong.
True.
But it's also the duty of government to keep engaging that majority until they begin to see things from a look. I don't get it. Look at the tax reforms bill, for instance. Look at the way and manner the government went about it, despite major concerns about it.
And they've not done anything to
reorientate
the people.
We have 2 or 3 documents in circulation, for crying out loud. Do you understand? We are not in a democracy. We are in a civilian regime. Full stop.
Okay, moving on, there seemed to be a showdown between the federal government and Disco. It's been going on for a while and looks like it's got to a height when the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, directed that prepaid meters procured under the World Bank funded distribution that happened some weeks ago must be installed for electricity consumers free of charge, warning that any official or installer found collecting money will be prosecuted. And of course, discos are pushing back about it, that we will pay for those prepaid meters installation, and it's been back and forth since then. What's your take on that?
For government would always be looking for political advantage. Government wants its people to believe that it's making efforts, and his efforts are in the interest of his people. Don't forget that people are already complaining that they have been overly taxed. so much money is being collected and they're not getting commensurate value from those things. You know, Nigeria wants to tax it like a first world country and deliver third world benefits. That's what Nigeria likes to do, because we hear Taiwo tell us that Nigeria generates just 3 trillion naira from taxes. South Africa generated 60 trillion from taxes. And you ask the question, is South Africa going through the same health challenge, road challenges, power challenges that Nigerians go through?
I mean,
You understand?
South Africa is the most developed country in Africa by far.
In Africa.
By far.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Do South Africans have to cope with power outages and national grid collapses? Do South Africans have to cope with those things? I keep telling people this tax issue. It's a trust issue. So let me go back to the conversation about
prepaid meters.
Prepaid meters. Now, government wants us to believe that people that installation was free of charge, and these codes are saying there should be some payments, and this is government's position. We have given you this loan. The payment should be captured in the services, which will be deducted over a period of time from the tariff. It's a tariff structure pays for whatever infrastructure was deployed. So there is no point collecting. It will amount to double payment if people have to pay for installation. Now, this tells us one thing, basically, that the agency in charge, National and Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Agency, may not be doing its job as it should. Because if it was a regulator that is worth its salt, operators under that regulatory framework should not be there should not be this back and forth altercation, public disgrace between the regulator and the operator in a decent society. Because there should be a regulatory framework. Things should not be open-ended. Everybody should know the terms of engagement of every facility. I mean, $500 million was facilitated from the World Bank. And so these things should be clear. There shouldn't be any back and forth. But I'll tell you, for what Nigeria is, there is a possibility. I'll tell you this. There is the possibility that the money was being collected and it was the regulator was in the know. I'm not saying this is, I'm saying this is Nigeria. This could be the case. Now, the regulator knew that they were going to collect money for installation. You get?
Yeah.
Now, the regulator did not issue any statement against it. Now, people now started talking. Regulator now wants to save face. Do you understand? Regulator wants to save face because in the first instance, when you get your meter, there was a program. The idea of the tariff is such that every cost on infrastructure would have been fine-tuned into that tariff structure. Yeah. So you are paying for these things gradually. Instead of having to pay hundreds of thousands of naira to buy the meters, the meter cost, the capital cost the tariff would have absorbed that capital cost. So you are paying it with its interest over time. Well, at least it's Nigeria where exploitation is number one.
Okay, because of time, the Abia State Governor Alex Oti has continued to get applause for his style of leadership and innovation in Abia State. And the latest is his pronouncement that the state no longer experience power failure caused by frequent collapse of national grid system, as its administration is now investing in converting organic waste product into electricity. What's your take on that, briefly?
That's a good development, and I am also aware that there are a few communities in Nigeria that have been using waste to power over the last 15 years. You understand? They have not been part of the national grid. And with the power sector reforms, you would expect that governors will swing into creative thinking, like Alex Oti is doing. Alex Oti is lucky to have somebody like Batinaji in his state. Prof, when it comes to power generation, transmission, and industry, I'm not sure. There are very few Nigerians that will be as good as Professor Batinaji. And I'm sure he's the one in charge of the Aba power plant too. So, and Aba power plant has been doing interesting things. So I won't be surprised if Alex Oti is trying to, as much as possible, to diversify sources of power in Abia State. This is what all the governors should be doing now. You understand? It doesn't make sense that 230 million people are scrambling over 5,000 megawatts.
It doesn't make sense, actually.
It doesn't make sense at all. It also says it tells us how lazy in head most of our governors are. How lazy.
Because Nigeria is too big to be depending on one source of power. When there are that 5, 6, 7, source of power.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something? Incidentally, investors might even be willing, but the political elite wants to make money off investors. I'll tell you a story. This happened to a close friend. It brought Japanese to a particular state in Nigeria that generates a lot of waste. And Japanese values, they're not like the Chinese. Japanese, they're very strict with their values. They came to town, they had conversations with the commissioner, with the governor. And after all the signings, the commissioner now came back to my friend to ask him what are the Japanese going to be giving to the commissioner.
Wow.
And my friend said he summoned the courage to say, well, let me run it by them. And they asked the question. We will employ well over 7,000 of your people who will pay income taxes.
Yeah.
We will also pay corporate income taxes. What exactly are you asking for?
That is definitely not enough for them. They want something, they'll go into their private pocket.
And that was how that project stalled. This was $1 billion. Now, imagine this happened in 2009. Now, imagine how much we would have done with that waste. It was a recycling project. Yes, I remember. It was a recycling project. You can imagine how much families that would have transformed their lives, the direct and indirect opportunities that would have come. Many other Japanese companies that probably would have come as a result of our success stories.
Let's end it here, Mr. Daniels. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. Unfortunately, we have to go. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, that was Yemi Daniels, a current affairs analyst, talking to us right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. And for a quick look at what's happening outside Nigeria, Burkina Faso's junta announced Thursday that it plans to dissolve all political parties whose activities have been suspended since the military rulers seized power in 2022. Captain Ibrahim Traore took over in September 2022 coup after toppling another junta and sharply muscled dissenting voices since then. Parties were previously banned from holding public gatherings but still allowed to operate internally. The presidency said in a readout that the government believes that the proliferation of political parties had led to abuses, fueled divisions among citizens, and weakened the social fabric. A draft law dissolving political parties will now be sent to the Transitional Legislative Assembly as soon as possible. The Territorial Administration Minister Emile Zebo said the assets of the parties will be transferred to the state. He added, the decision continued aims to preserve national unity, strengthen the coherence of government action, and pave the way for reforming political governance. Traore's 2022 coup ousted Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, who had taken power only 9 months earlier. After going into exile in Togo, Damiba was regularly accused by Burkina's military rulers of planning coup plots and assassination attempt, the latest earlier this month. Togo extradited him this month back to Burkina Faso. And now to sports news. An alien Carlos Alcaraz battled past Alexander Zverev on Friday in 5 epic sets to reach his final Australian Open final, his first Australian Open final rather, a move within a match of becoming the youngest man to complete a career Grand Slam. The world number one outlasted the German third 6-4, 7-6, 7-5, 6-7, 3 of 7, 6-7, 4 of 7, 7-5 over a titanic 5-hour 27 minutes in hot conditions, and will play either Yannick Sinner or Novak Djokovic in Sunday's title match. But they only narrowly avoided crashing out after a huge frayed at 4-4 in the third set when he pulled up in pain with what appeared to be cramp. He was allowed to have treatment in the changeover, leaving Zverev furious and angrily remonstrating with officials as medical timeouts are not permitted solely for muscle cramping. The Spaniard continued, but his movement was hampered and he lost his first set of the tournament before he pickled juice kicked in and fought on. Despite not being at 100%, he somehow found a way to claw back from a breakdown in the fifth set as the crowd roared him on to leave the German shattered. Alcaraz has won 2 French Opens, 2 US Opens and twice at Wimbledon, but success on the blue Melbourne Park hard court has eluded the 22-year-old in 4 previous campaigns. Should he snap the drought, he would be the youngest man in the Open era to win all 4 majors, surpassing compatriot and legend Rafael Nadal, who was 24 when he did so. Before we go, let's take a look at our top stories again. Men feared killed abducted in attack in Ebonyi community. NARD gives of government a 4 weeks ultimatum and extend strike suspension. We also brought a story that Lagos court grants activist Soweto and Dele Frank 200,000 naira bail each over anti-demolition protest. And meter cost spark discos and federal government showdown in tariff. Outside Nigeria, Burkina Faso junta to dissolve all political parties. And in sport, Alcaraz outlast Zverev in epic clash to reach maiden Australian Open final. And that's a wrap on the world news at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. And don't forget to follow all our social media handles at VOP903FM and subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP903FM. I am Solomon Offem. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.